What's going on, Exiles? Magdallan here, and today I want to talk about three things that I think a lot of folks are getting wrong about solo currency farming. I've noticed a lot of much larger content creators than myself talking about these topics in a way that is, sort of hand wavy and dismissive of them as though they won't work or they're not worth spending your time on. And so I just wanted to throw my own opinion out there in the hopes that some people might find it interesting and might help a few people make a little bit more currency here at the late stage of the Archnemesis League. So if that interests you, stick around. All right, I figured we'd smash a map or two while we talk about this. Start this delirium encounter. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Archnemesis mechanic itself. I've noticed a lot of content creators saying things like, does anybody do this mechanic anymore? Stuff like that. And I want to push back on that a little bit because I have still been having fantastic success with the basic recipe that was popularized at the very beginning of the league. The mirror image, treant horde, assassin, reju. And I find that if you have your filter set up correctly, which is to say you are only showing the components that you actually need as, being large, text-wise, and having loot filter sounds, and then you set all the other pieces up so that they're essentially invisible. They're just tiny and they have no border and whatever. It effectively emulates being able to hide them, which you can't do. That streamlines it to the point where it basically, I think, takes me about a minute of total engagement time in my maps to click on all the stuff that I'm going to need to do the recipe 3 or 4 times. And then I estimate that it takes me about a minute or so to do the 4 encounters to pop the recipe once I have all the stuff. I always do them at the end of maps, etc. And so, in terms of the amount of time I'm actually doing Archnemesis stuff, I estimate it's about 5 minutes or so to do 3 of the recipe. And I pretty routinely get an Exalt every other, but for these purposes, let's just say 1 and 3. An Exalt for 5 minutes of time as a solo player is very good. That would be 12 an hour if you could find a strategy that you could do that was like this, that you could just do nonstop. And so I don't really have a whole lot more to say than that on the topic. I've just found it to be a nice bonus moneymaker. You don't have to put anything in. It's zero investment. It's passive and it's free money from my perspective. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Harbingers. And this one, people aren't as aggressive in terms of the way they talk about this than they are about the Archnemesis League mechanic. I think people just generally don't like it, the Archnemesis mechanic, and so there's a tendency to be a little bit more harsh about it than I think is warranted. With Harbinger, it's more of an attitude of like, it's not that good, or it's, a passable. You could pass it up and not feel real bad about it in favor of, just about any other mechanic, and you'd be fine. And again, that hasn't been my experience. Particularly the node that causes currency shards to have a chance to drop as full currency items. I believe it's called Unspeakable Offensive. I would say that's probably been the most lucrative single node on the Atlas tree by a wide stretch. And part of the reason for that is that you're not just getting exalted orbs. As you just saw, you're getting ancient orbs, you're getting orbs of annulment. All of these sell at really good ratios to exalt. And I've made a ton of money doing it. In fact, I would say that's my primary method. And it has the benefit of, again, being something that you don't have to really do a lot of trading. You might have to buy some scarabs here or there. I also like to buy the sextants. And But those are easy to buy just through the trade interface. I literally, every time I sit down to try and buy these sextants, without fail, the second or third person will say, oh, I have 10. Do you just want to buy them all? And they don't even charge more. They're not even charging bulk prices. So if they're selling them for 20C a piece, they'll just sell me 10 of them at 20C a piece. Okay, perfect. That happens all the time. And then I just blast maps and pick up the currency. And then when I have the currency, obviously the Exalted Orbs, I don't have to do anything with them. They just go in the stash. But the Ancient Orbs trade easy. Everybody uses... I don't know what they're doing with those. I think they're eating them at this point. They can't be pulling that many uniques out of these things. In any event, for me, Harbinger has just been nonstop, consistent currency gains from the beginning of the league until now. For me, it's been indispensable. And I can't recommend it enough. If you're a player that you want to go it solo, you want to blast maps and make good money, you don't want to spend all day on TFT, so on and so forth, do Harbinger. Pick up Unspeakable Offensive. And that leads me into the last point that I'll make. And that is, well, this is more of a philosophical trend than it is just a specific, thing that you engage with and then it shits out currency. It's an attitude more than it is a specific mechanic. And that's this idea that I've seen a lot on much bigger content creators than myself, which is that they'll almost, it seems like, use a stopwatch when they're doing the maps and tell you, like, it took me exactly 72.471 minutes to do 100 maps and this is the money that I made and whatever. And then they'll say something like, yeah, it took like an hour to do all the prep. And for me, it's like, well, how much are you rounding? Did it actually take an hour or did it take 2 or an hour and a half or whatever? But in any event, you have to add the time in that it takes you to do all the prep into your formulation of whether or not it's a good method. I don't actually really care if you have a 10x an hour strategy if what you're meaning is it's 10 hours of mapping and an additional 15 hours of trading on TFT and selling items. And another thing is, the more juice, the more tedious loot collecting there is at the end of the map. And the more risk. If you DC and lose a map, I was doing pretty heavily juiced content with a buddy of mine farming divines. And it was content that was hard enough that we were both running characters that were well in excess of a mirror in value, his being substantially more than that. And we were investing more than an Exalt in each map. And you'd be surprised how many times you come out of the map to loot and then, you forget and just open the next map. Oh shit, there goes half my profit. Or more than once we both DC'd, server crashed or whatever, and the instance was just gone. Oops. Or you hit a lag spike and you die a couple times. Oops. Now you don't realize your full profit. Whereas for me, as a solo mapper, if I die once in a while, it just literally doesn't matter. But then also, if I brick a map or it DCs or whatever, I don't care. We're talking, maybe 30, 40 C total investment per map, but a lot of it is passive stuff. I'm not actually just going out and buying things. Really the only thing I'm buying routinely are scarabs and sextants. The rest of it is just stuff that I pick up. Once in a great while I'll have to buy more chisels, stuff like that, but pretty negligible. So, just to recap, those are the 3 things that I think are worth reconsidering if you've been listening to a lot of the, general discourse on the topics in the community. That's the Archnemesis recipe. I like it. It's good. That the mirror image Treant Horde Assassin Rejuve variant continues to make me tons of money. I also think that Harbinger gets a slightly bad rap, and particularly the unspeakable offensive node is amazing. And then lastly, I guess I'm just kind of cautioning people to be mindful that there is this tendency to downplay the amount of time that we're actually having to spend to get these higher level strategies going. Now, as a slight caveat, obviously with the super juice stuff, you're also hoping for the tier 0 drops. And then it starts to get wacky. You're making insane amounts per hour. But that's a topic for another time, another discussion. Those were just 3 things that I saw a lot of people talking about that I thought, hey, I've got an opinion and an experience that differs slightly from the narrative that I see being espoused in the wild. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. I will be back very soon with an update on my quest for the Mage Blood Belt. We're making great progress. I'm expecting to have the project completed in the next day or 2. And yeah, as always, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. I appreciate you.